Hi, I'm Kat Rambo, and I recently curated a wonderful story bundle called Feminist Futures. And I'm here with one of the participants, Athena Andreadis, to talk about her anthology, To Shape the Dark, and why it's one of the many reasons you should pick up the bundle. So, Athena, this is a themed anthology. It followed a absolutely wonderful one called Holding Up the Sky that I was part of, and therefore it was amazing. This one is equally amazing, and it deals with scientists. What made you decide to talk about to do that as a theme?
Well, as you know, Kat, science, sort of awe-inspiring science is one of the cores of science fiction. But the way science is portrayed in science fiction is either it has been almost always either triumphalism or hubris. And science fiction seems to also be stuck on the cliche of the sort of the lone misfit scientist who just is somewhere in their basement, and it's also very regressive vis-a-vis women scientists in particular, because if you ask somebody to tell you a woman scientist in science fiction, they will say Susan Calvin. Pretty much. That's the one person whose name comes up when you ask. And, as you probably know, I wear two hats. I'm a research scientist as well as an author, editor, etc., writer of this, writer of that. And science, though, is very different. It's actually a collective enterprise. And on top of that, I wanted to show scientists, women scientists doing science, not as it's usually portrayed in science fiction. And in particular, I wanted to show them as fully functioning human beings who are also not just who are not just a fire in their vocation, which is a big deal because science is a jealous mistress. But who are embedded in their relationships, who are embedded in their societies, who are not just this narrow focused person. But I also wanted to convey this sense of epiphany, which is actually the major reason why scientists do science. That little feeling of epiphany, even when you get small discoveries and small recognitions of patterns. So I had already done the other half of the sky. It had been very, very well received. And so I thought this would be my second one. So that's what prompted the anthology. And you can see how it fits in Feminist Futures.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that I really like about it, TOC is very diverse, and you have a lot of fabulous authors that have a set there that I think brings a lot to the anthology in terms of diversity. And speaking as an editor, that's hard to achieve. And so one of the things I was curious about is where you went about achieving that in anthology.
Well, I asked people who were already writing in the mode that I liked. And of course, as with all anthologies, you get an attrition rate. So there were more people. You invite more than to get something that's 15 or 16 stories. You invite about 1/3 more people. And so I basically went for people whose writing I liked and whom I would read happily. And by now, my footprint in the genre is whether I'm notorious or famous is another story, but I'm known well enough that people responded to the invitation, which was very gratifying. And the other thing that was gratifying is that I said, I said, I will not dictate what you write. The only thing I will say is two things. One is do not really break basic concepts. I mean, all science fiction science is sciencey, but just don't do something that's really egregious. But also try not to give me the two most shop-worn science occupations in science fiction, which are psychologist and computer wizard. And what was gratifying is that without any prompting for me, if you read the stories, every single story, the protagonist has a different discipline, and they go all the way from quantum mechanics to galaxies and everything in between. So that was very nice.
That's really good. And so, kind of on that, tell me about some of the stories that you felt really achieved that really did something new and interesting. Because I know as an editor, all of the stories are your favorite, but pull a couple out.
Well, I liked very much Melissa Scott's Firstborn, Lastborn. It's a very exotic, far future story. And it deals with somebody who's a plasma smith, which is a nifty thing to consider. Basically, it's like being a god, because you can shape worlds. I liked Aliette de Baudard's Crossing the Midday Gate, because it shows that, defeat as well. It shows failure and dealing with failure, and dealing with real dilemmas. It's not this idealized version of things, and it shows the power politics that play a role in everything, including science. And what I liked, Gwyneth Jones' The Seventh Gamer, because it took something that could be a cliche, which is looking at virtual life, and showed it under a completely different light, really completely different. And then I liked Kristen Landau's From the Depths, because it took something that's not very common. The last person I can really think of who did this extensively was Poul Anderson. She shows a world that's almost entirely water, which is also, most science fiction is land-based. Not many, and Vonda McIntyre has done some of this and so did Schlosansky in The Door into Ocean. But there are few and in between that you know them. So, and I'll stop there. I think I already said plenty. But they're wonderful. So, what was wonderful was that I really, really enjoyed editing them. I had such fun. It was wonderful.
So are you working on any editing projects right now?
Well, as you know, since late 2015, I'm the owner, editor, main dishwasher, etc., of this small indie press called Candlemark Gleam, which was the indie press that actually published the anthologies. So I basically took it over from its immensely capable founder, because she was getting exhausted and wanted to close, and I said, don't close, give it to me. And so I am working on a number of books. There are 2 evolved space operas that are coming out this year. So one of them is by Kelly Jennings, called Fault Lines, and the other is going to be at the beginning of, if all goes well, of more than one book by Melissa Scott, based on the 2 stories, one each. It's actually the same universe. So from the other half of the sky, Finders, and Firstborn, Lastborn from Shape the Dark. And so that's coming out in December. Kelly's is coming out in June. And I would like to do at least 1, maybe 2 more anthologies. So one is I've sort of sent out a preliminary call. So this is going to be myths of the inland seas, being the Mediterranean and the Black Sea. But I would very much also like to do an anthology with older women, because that's a humongous gap in science fiction. And I would like to go into this, because after all, I myself, I'm in in my third youth. And I notice how women become invisible in science fiction past a certain age, no matter how good they are. And you end up with like 1 token name, and the rest are like consigned to oblivion.
Yeah. Well, I actually have pitched a story bundle for 2019, a one that's only science fiction with older protagonists. So we should talk.
Science fiction, that's one thing of the things that I was also gratified in, that To Shade the Dark has a lot of old and older women scientists, and and what's nice is that they're shown to be respected mentors. They're shown to establish intellectual dynasties, and which is something that's sorely needed both in science fiction and in science. So yeah, so that's sort of the plan, more or less.
That's awesome. So I think that's about the end of our time, and I hope that we have convinced people that they need to pick up the story bundle and get this awesome anthology.
I would agree, and thank you for the invitation, and I hope we have more conversations like this.
I'm sure you will. Awesome. Thank you.
Very good.